Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Remember, check tarpley.net for my books, which are indispensable for following all of this passing scandal parade that we've got and the tremendous crisis that we're going into, the second wave of the Depression now upon us, including my appearance on Russia Today this past week, RT, which was about the ginning up of cyber warfare by elements inside the U.S. government. A full treatment of that is available at tarpley.net. So Rahm Emanuel's Night of the Long Knives, an attempt to extinguish any opposition against Wall Street domination inside the Democratic Party, targeting such figures as Rangel, Conyers, Benny Thompson, Kucinich, Massa, DeFazio, Dingell, Murtha, until he passed away, and key governorships, Patterson of New York under attack, Blagojevich forced out, the new candidate, of course, they had this Janulius, Alexei Janulius, a element of the underworld, in effect, through his family bank, unspeakable corruption. This is part of the same Resco machine of slumlords and profiteers that Obama himself comes from. And, of course, the Daley machine in Illinois, Mayor Daley and his brother William, who wanted to be ambassador to China but was not allowed to do that because Rahm Emanuel had this character Huntsman in mind for the post. Daley machine not happy with Obama, not happy with Rahm Emanuel, and therefore a lot of tensions breaking out. If you look at Patrick Kennedy's outburst this past week about the fact that the media were covering Massa and not the question of the Afghan war, this is an unstable individual, but he's pointing to something quite real in a somewhat clouded way. What he's obviously concerned about is Massa, and the idea that Massa was significantly an ally of the Kennedy machine, or what's left of it, left liberal part of the Democratic Party, the part that's more likely to be anti-war. Remember, Rahm Emanuel demands only warmonger Democrats. As we pointed out here in 2006, the word from Rahm Emanuel was if you wanted money from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee to run for Congress, you had to be a warmonger. You had to be a finish-the-job-in-Iraq warmonger. And that meant that Tammy Duckworth in Ohio got millions to lose, and Colonel Bob Bowman down in Florida, who came close to winning, was denied any penny. He got nothing, in effect. A few $100,000 would have put him over the top. That would have been another Democratic seat. So look at also the slimy role in all of this of the Daily Kos, and look at the slimy role of Ariana Huffington, the Puff-Ho, as she's known. It's not the HuffPo, but the Puff-Ho, obviously funded by George Soros, one of those speculators who has been the most prominent in attacking Greece through hedge funds and through derivatives. If we look at the forces arrayed, so to speak, based on these articles, if we try to read the tea leaves and see who's on what side, what we seem to see is that on the one side you've got Rahm Emanuel and his White House machine with significant parts of the intelligence community and AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, plus other interests, significant part of the Washington Post with them. But on the other side you've got the Clintons. Hillary Clinton hates Rahm Emanuel and does not like working at the State Department where she takes orders from Rahm Emanuel. The Kennedys, that would be the outburst by Patrick Kennedy that we've just seen. The Black Caucus under attack, and significant establishment elements, because after these articles in praise of Rahm Emanuel, we've got David Gergen and David Broder, the electronic and print media voices of the Eastern liberal establishment, essentially not supporting Rahm Emanuel, but rather inclining to be critical of him. Gergen would be somebody who might imagine that he could become the White House chief of staff if Rahm Emanuel were forced out, in the same way that Gergen came into the Clinton White House after Clinton lost the congressional election in 1994. So he obviously is a candidate to do that. We've also got Sally Quinn, Ben Bradley, right, the old Watergate circles from the Washington Post, not liking Rahm Emanuel as far as we can see. So this is a real fight behind the scenes. One interesting sidelight, just to show the degree to which public events are actually the reflection of underground movements that the average person does not see. This whole question of bringing the Olympics to Chicago was essentially sponsored by Valerie Jarrett and her crew of real estate speculators and profiteers. They thought that if they could bring the Olympics to Chicago, they could make a fortune on land speculation through the Olympic Village and all the rest of this. Even though it was a desperate bid, it looked like Brazil with Lula had been locked in as the likely winner. Michelle Obama also went out on a limb to bring the Olympics to Chicago, land scam in Chicago, and took Obama to Copenhagen. Obviously, Obama profiling more and more as a weakling in this regard. So there we have that interesting story. That was underneath it all was a land scam or real estate speculation attempt. Now, this situation is obviously it has authoritarian overtones to it. Rahm Emanuel, to whom may we compare him? How about Mussolini? The Mussolini overtones of the Obama campaign were quite obvious, and I pointed to these systematically during 2008, 2009. And I warned that at a certain point, the night of the long knives comes. In other words, there's some kind of a backlash. Obama rode the left liberals, the anti-war people, into power. That is how he won the primaries. But then there comes a time, like now, when he's escalating the war in Afghanistan, selling out more and more to Wall Street, selling out to the insurance companies, selling out to Big Pharma, that there's a backlash building in the Congress and elsewhere against this. And if he is defeated on health care, as he should be, this will then turn into a full-scale revolt, and that would probably lead to the fall of Rahm Emanuel. And I've said the only hope to change anything here, as long as Obama is in power, is a total crisis of the regime, a complete catharsis. And it has to begin with the ouster of a whole lot of these figures, starting with Rahm Emanuel. In other words, when you have the cabinet cleaned out, when half of the cabinet is out, when Rahm Emanuel is out and a whole bunch of White House czars and others are ousted, then you will know that something has changed and that the situation has begun to open up. Obviously, mobilize before that happens, but when it happens, mobilize for sure then. The comparison I would make is with Mussolini and the Italian parliament. He seized power, of course, the March on Rome, October 1922, but he didn't have complete power. There was still a king. There was a monarchical establishment that he had to deal with and control. So it took 1923, 1924, 1925, 1926 before you actually had the consolidation of a complete authoritarian and the totalitarian dictatorship under Mussolini. And there was a big phase of conflict with the parliament when Mussolini was changing the laws. He said if you get 1/4 of the votes in the election, you should get 2/3 of the seats in the parliament. And there was a social democratic deputy, Matteotti, socialist deputy, who said no, and he was mysteriously assassinated. So this is the kind of terrain we're getting into. Mussolini struggled with the parliament, Rahm Emanuel's attempt to purge the House of Representatives. Back in a minute.